The Soviet Union fought in 3 wars to help spread communism throughout Asia. These wars were in Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan. At the end of March 1950, the North Koreans invaded South Korea. The US, with the help of the United Nations, tried to help the South, but the inadequate resources caused thousands of soldiers to flee, die, or be captured. Thus, the US had to pull out of the war. The Vietnam War was mainly fought because the newly free North Vietnamese wanted to free the South to create a communist nation of Vietnam. This war started in 1955, and by 1965, the Soviet Union and China helped supply the North with weapons, military support, and political direction, as the US started helping as well. The cost for the US and their casualties of a growing war caused the US to withdraw by 1973. In 1975, though, South Vietnam fell to a full-scale invasion by the North Vietnamese. On December 27, 1979, the Soviet Union entered Afghanistan to spread communism. The hostility at this point between the US and the USSR was high, but another war of containment was not in the mind of the American people. But there was one man who wanted to help when everyone else didn't. Charlie Wilson. The Proxy War.
How Charlie Wilson took a stand for arming the Afghan Mujahideen.
Researched and documentary by Vikas
and Fiona Spitzley. Charles Nesbitt Wilson was born on July 1st of 1933 to Wilmeth Wilson and Charles Edwin Wilson. He first had a taste in politics when he drove black voters to the polls to vote against his neighbor, who fed his dog glass. Charlie Wilson attended Sam Houston State University, and after college he joined the military and worked as an evaluator for Soviet nuclear forces for the Navy from 1956 to 1960. This caused Charlie Wilson to despise communism. The campaign of Democrat John F. Kennedy inspired him to run as a representative for the U.S. Congress.
Charlie Wilson was part of the Democratic Party and supported reforms for Medicaid, tax exemptions for the elderly, and the minimum wage. He had the nickname Good Time Charlie for his love of parties and his bad habit of drinking.
When the Soviet Union entered Afghanistan, Congress and the CIA did not vote to give aid to the Afghan resistance. Charlie Wilson fully disagreed with the verdict, so he began to aid the Afghan people, specifically the Mujahideen fighters, all in secret.
Charlie Wilson cared about helping the Mujahideen so much that he used favors that he earned from supporting certain bills on the Defense Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. He also thought that trying to win the war through peace wouldn't work, because he and the people of the U.S. were not the ones who were affected by the war.
I have a very fortunate position in the Congress because I'm on the Defense Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. And I don't have any military bases in my district, and I don't have any defense contractors. But most members on the committee have industries or have military bases that they have to protect. Therefore, I was able to trade off. And I was able to say, okay, I'll vote for another 50 tanks, but I want my $15 million for the Mujahideen.
You were making political deals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there was nothing I wouldn't trade.
The position of Charlie Wilson in Congress allowed him to get money from the other members of the Defense Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. He helped with one thing, and he got what he wanted in return.
Charlie Wilson demanded money to be spent to help the refugees, and before this, only the president had made such demands. Unfortunately, the effect of doubling the money for the Mujahideen not really changed the fact that they were losing the war. After this, Charlie Wilson took a trip to Peshawar and realized the suffering of the Afghan refugees and the soldiers, renewing his efforts to help them.
It was a great epiphany for me. I didn't ever expect to see 3 million refugees. And I certainly didn't ever anticipate seeing people treated the way that they were treated, mistreated the way they were treated.
Charlie Wilson was talking about his trip to Peshawar, where he saw the inhumane acts of the Soviets, and this really inspired him to aid the Mujahideen. He had wanted to before, but this trip made the suffering of those people sink in. a suffering he vowed to stop. In September of 1986, the war in Afghanistan started to shift to the Mujahideen's favor. The fighters were given U.S. Stinger guns and British blowpipes. They also received anti-aircraft missiles. Most of the weapons came through the demands and favors that Charlie Wilson was able to attain. Over the course of the war, they received almost $5 billion in funding for their cause. Charlie Wilson was largely responsible for the smuggling of billions of rounds of ammunition, and by the end of the 1980s, he was able to get $5 billion to the Mujahideen and the Afghan government, as well as 300,000 Afghan warriors carrying weapons funded by the CIA. The operation in Afghanistan was the biggest CIA operation, as well as one of the largest secret wars in history.
The after effect of Charlie Wilson's actions led to the Afghanistan Republic. However, without the further support of the U.S., the terrorist group called the Taliban were able to form, and by extension led to 9/11 and increased security by the creation of the TSA. Charlie Wilson's actions also directly led to the Soviet Union leaving Afghanistan and led to the fall of the Soviet Union shortly afterward. This led to the end of the Cold War.
Charlie Wilson took a stand for arming the Afghan Mujahideen by smuggling billions of rounds of ammunition to the Mujahideen fighters on the backs of pack animals. But he wasn't just their ally, he was their friend. He took several trips to Peshawar and met with the leaders of the Afghan resistance. Charlie believed in the Afghan fighters and continued to fight for them. Charlie Wilson advised the government to continue helping Afghanistan after the war, requesting funding for schools and other things that would make life better for the people of Afghanistan. He warned the U.S. government that if funding ceased, there'd be problems later on for the U.S. Charlie Wilson proved to be right, but even after the acts of terror, he never regretted helping Afghanistan. For his important role in the Afghan resistance, Charlie Wilson was honored with a biographical movie, Charlie Wilson's War, starring Tom Hanks. Charlie Wilson's War was released on December 10th of 2007 in the United States. Charlie died on February 10th of 2010, so he lived to see how he was honored within his own country for his stand for the Afghan Mujahideen.